As the 2025 NFL Draft draws closer, players like Travis Hunter, Shedeur Sanders, and Cam Ward will likely dominate the headlines, and it's understandable as to why. But there is one player who I feel is not being talked about enough, at least in a positive way, and that is none other than the lockdown corner out of Michigan, Will Johnson. I say that because in my eyes, Will Johnson is the top defensive prospect in this draft, which a few months ago seemed to be what many others thought as well. But as we've gotten further along in the process, Johnson has started to fall on a lot of people's boards, or at least for people in the media. Now you may be wondering why that's happening, and personally, I think it's yet another case of prospect fatigue, which is simply when a top prospect gets overanalyzed and people start to overthink. Unfortunately, this is something we see happen with every draft. I mean, just look back to last year's draft when some people were overthinking Marvin Harrison Jr. and Caleb Williams when they had been looked at as generational for so long. And I'm not saying that Will Johnson is generational, but what I am saying is people are overthinking him as a player. If you just watch him play, you'll see why that's the case. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the breakdown, and I'll tell you why Will Johnson is the top defensive prospect. The first thing that pops off when watching Will Johnson play is just how instinctive he is. The way he's able to read the quarterback and anticipate routes is unlike any cornerback in this draft. It seems like he just knows what the play is and where the ball is going. His overall elite football IQ combined with his patience in zone coverage allows him to get a jump on routes and make a play on the ball. A lot of the times, especially on underneath throws, it feels like he's just testing the quarterback, hoping they throw his way. It kind of reminds me of how we would play as kids with our friends, when we would give a big cushion to whoever we were guarding in hopes the quarterback would throw it our way. And when they would, we'd try and beat the receiver to the ball in hopes of getting an interception. And Johnson is a lot more successful at that than we ever were. Because although quarterbacks won't throw in his direction much, when they do, he reacts quickly thanks to his exceptional downhill acceleration, which often leads to them paying the price, with a pass breakup, interception, or him absolutely drilling the pass catcher, limiting the yards after catch. Johnson also possesses the ideal size and length for a corner, coming in at 6'2" and 194 pounds. And despite him being a taller corner, he actually has great footwork and speed with a smooth back pedal as well. He also utilizes his frame and size well, which allows him to match up with receivers of all shapes and sizes without a problem. On the outside, Johnson disrupts timing by using his frame to bully receivers off the line. On top of that, he utilizes leverage to force receivers out of bounds, which often takes them out of the play completely. He uses the sideline as a second defender almost, which you'll see a lot of elite corners do in the NFL. Johnson also has elite ball skills and isn't afraid to fight through contact to make a play at the ball, which is a big reason as to why he's so disruptive, because even if he doesn't get to the ball, he still affects the play by making it so hard on the receiver to come away with it due to him not being scared to get physical and his overall length. Lastly, to wrap up the positives, Johnson was a 3-year starter at Michigan and didn't give up a touchdown in his last 2 seasons. Mind you, he went up against some of the best receivers in college football like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome Odunze. On top of that, he is also scheme versatile as he thrived in both press man and zone coverages in college. Now all that does sound great, but much like everyone else, Will Johnson isn't perfect. There are some concerns I do have with this game. First of which is just how handsy he is when beaten downfield. He needs to learn to trust his recovery speed rather than reaching out and grabbing players. After all, that could lead to some costly penalties at the next level. A big reason as to why he'll get beaten downfield from time to time is because of his aggressive nature. You see, sometimes he'll get caught spying in the backfield for too long or trying to jump routes, and it will lead to him biting on double moves or losing his man completely. In addition to that, at times he'll give too much of a cushion off the line, leading to receivers getting easy uncontested catches. That is something he's going to have to ease up on and learn not to gamble as much, because teams will try and take advantage of that. Johnson also has a problem with missed tackles due to how he tends to launch himself at ball carriers in open space rather than breaking down. His pad level can be a bit high at times, which does play a part in his missed tackles as well. And although it was a smaller sample size, he did have a higher missed tackle rate than normal this past season. Johnson also has questions about his speed and whether or not he will be able to keep up with faster receivers in the NFL. This only drew more concerns recently, with him not testing out in many drills and not running the 40-yard dash in the pre-draft workouts. Now, I can see why people would have concerns with this, and I do agree that it is something to make note of, but I think this has been blown way out of proportion. I mean, we just saw this last year with people thinking Marvin Harrison Jr. must be slow with no real evidence aside from he didn't run the 40. So he may not be the fastest, but that does not mean he can't keep up with faster receivers on the outside. Lastly, and probably his biggest concern, is his injury history. The real big concern started in spring of 2023, when he suffered a knee injury that caused him to miss the first 3 games of Michigan's championship-winning season. In 2024, the injuries only piled up more as he suffered a shoulder injury in week 3, which caused him to miss some time, and then would later have his season cut short in October with a season-ending turf toe injury. Then just a few months ago, in February, he suffered a hamstring injury which kept him from participating in the Combine and Michigan's Pro Day. That injury, combined with him rehabbing his turf toe, undoubtedly impacted his pre-draft preparation, which could have played a part in why he didn't test out in some drills. Now, with all these injuries, I can understand why a team might be hesitant on drafting him. But personally, with a guy like him, I'd be willing to take a risk. But that might just be me talking as a Texans fan, considering it worked out with us with Derek Stingley Jr. And also, I'm not a doctor, so I can't really elaborate further on these injuries and how they could affect him in the future. But overall, Will Johnson is a very instinctive and patient corner that can play in both man and zone. I know the injury concerns may scare you away from drafting him, but if you get the Will Johnson we saw in 2023, then I'd argue you're getting a guy who could potentially be a top 5 corner in the league and a cornerstone of your defense for years to come. With that being said, let me know what you think of Will Johnson and how he will end up in the NFL down in the comments below. While you're down there, let me know some of your hot takes and opinions on this year's draft. I'd really love to hear what y'all have to say. And if you did enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe. We are on our way to 300 subscribers, so I would really appreciate it. So you may not agree with what I have to say, but in my eyes, Will Johnson is the top defensive prospect.